Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with our predictions for Week 6 of the college football season. We've been up, we've been down, we've been up, we've been down, and in Week 5 we had a stellar week at 17-6 against the spread. What it all equals is 58% against the spread this season, 58% against the spread last season. That sounds pretty consistent to me. Actually, we've been right in that range since we've been doing this for years. Close to 60% against the spread. As you know, you need about 52.5% against Vegas against the spread to win money. Straight up 99-22 coming off a 21-2 week against the money line. So listen up for the predictions, obviously against the spread, but also when we take underdogs to win the game outright. 16 times we have taken an underdog to win outright, and we have won those games 10 of 16 times. I think for those of you that predict the games and may put $1 or $2 on the games, you understand how difficult that is, that if you actually predict, let's say, 40 to 45% of underdogs and they turn out to be winners straight up on the field, that you will make money. So we are knocking out 10 out of 16. That's 62.5% in those situations. So listen up for those games in particular. Alabama, this is a quandary each and every week. Is Alabama going to play to the final gun? Are they going to play well enough for long enough and keep the starters in, or the second and third teamers are going to be motivated enough to complete the route? Last week, they led 56-0 as a 49-point favorite. They gave up 2 late touchdowns to Louisiana, which, of course, mattered nothing in terms of the game time, but it mattered everything to the people that play against the points. So Alabama at Arkansas in this one. Bama's a 35-point favorite. Stay away from this game, but I pick all the top 25 games, so I think I've got to pick number one, and I will take number one. Despite not covering the last 2 weeks, the Tide gets it done against Arkansas on the road. Bama minus 35 over the Hogs. Texas, Oklahoma, key game in the Big 12. Of course, aside from it being a rivalry, it looks like Texas is finally possibly capable to step up and challenge for a Big 12 championship. Texas, Oklahoma, of course, the Sooners have far more firepower, and Texas has a better defense. This game has been close in recent years, despite Oklahoma clearly being the better team. In this one, I have predicted Oklahoma to win the Big 12 championship. Actually, I picked them to finish first in the Big 12, but Texas to upset them in a rematch in the Big 12 championship game. And now that I look at it, I'm liking Texas to not only cover the points, but win the ball game. Take Texas plus 7.5 points, and Texas upsets Oklahoma at the Cotton Bowl. And also keep in mind, based on the research that we've done each and every week, we predict 20 to 23, something in that range, top 25, mostly top 25, and some other relevant games each week. There are 4 to 6 upsets each and every week, straight up upsets. So we've got to find the upsets, so they're there to be had. So about 20 to 22% of the games are upsets. That's one right there. Texas over Oklahoma. West Virginia traveling to Lawrence to take on Kansas. The Jayhawks improved. West Virginia's defense improved the last 2 years, and they will cover 26.5 points at Kansas. Maryland at Michigan, difficult one for me to select right here. Michigan will win the game at home, but Maryland's 17.5 points really seems like that's on the borderline of where this line should be, of course. I'll take the Terps in this one plus 17.5 points. This one jumped out at me. Northwestern goes on the road to Michigan State. Yes, there could be a letdown after the Wildcats led Michigan 17-0 and let it slip away, losing at home. Northwestern doesn't seem to matter whether they're at home or on the road, but with 10.5 points against a Michigan State team that's been under-impressive, yes, I believe the Spartans are a better team, and especially at home they win this. 10.5 points too much for me. So I take the Wildcats plus the 10.5 spot against Sparty. Mizzou at South Carolina. The Gamecocks not nearly as good as many thought they would be. They lost at Kentucky by 14 points. They come back home. They lost to Georgia at home in a game that they were not competitive. Mizzou, South Carolina, very even game right here. I'm basically picking a winner, so I might as well take the 2 points as well. I like Drew Lock and the better quarterback play with Jake Bentley questionable in this one. Mizzou plus the 2 points at South Carolina, and the Tigers win the game. Boston College at North Carolina State. Ryan Finley may be the best quarterback in the league. Anthony Brown with some question marks in the passing game. A.J. Dillon's been hobbled up. Everything would seem to point to North Carolina State romping in this one. They're at home. They're a 6.5-point favorite. On a hunch, I take BC to not only cover the points at 6.5, upsetting North Carolina State in Raleigh. Take BC plus the 6.5 points, and BC wins the game. Clemson at Wake, difficult decision here as well, considering what Clemson didn't do against the 25-point underdog in Syracuse. Wake, not the team that they've been the last 2 years, not nearly the defensive team, nor in the passing game that they were in 2017. So I like Clemson to cover late and take the 20 points. So Clemson covers 20 against Wake Forest. Would have liked the line that came out earlier in the week when the Tigers opened as a 16-point play, but we play them as we see them on Friday. So Clemson minus the 20 against Wake Forest. Florida State of Miami. Of course, this is one of the bigger spreads you're going to see in this series, and when we've seen this kind of spread in recent years, it's been Florida State as the big favorite, but Miami clearly the better team. Florida State struggled last week to come back with 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to upset Louisville or beat Louisville. And even in that game, now we see Louisville tonight on Friday night struggling with Georgia Tech at home. So Louisville's bad, Florida State's bad, but still 13.5 points, a little too much to my liking. Miami wins, Florida State covers. Take the 13.5 points. All right, we've got Iowa State at Oklahoma State. This is a game in which Oklahoma State has been up and down and up and down. They whipped Boise State by 3 scores 2 weeks ago. The next week, a 14-point favorite. They lose to Texas Tech badly. Iowa State with an impressive showing on the road against TCU, only losing by 3. They were close against Oklahoma. I don't think that Iowa State really cares going to Oklahoma State. I don't think the environment after going to TCU and playing Oklahoma is going to bother the Cyclones. I like Iowa State plus the 9.5 points, and in fact, I'm predicting the Cyclones to pull off the upset straight up at Stillwater. Indiana, Ohio State, Buckeyes win easily, but not that easily. Take IU plus the 26.5. They've got a history, of course, of playing Ohio State relatively close, and the Buckeyes pull away late. Arizona State at Colorado. Got to look at the talent difference here. I know the Buffs are off to a good start, but I like the Arizona State the level of play that they're putting out there against the likes of Washington, staying within a touchdown. Yes, they did lose to San Diego State on the road. They beat Michigan State. Colorado's due for a downer. Arizona State goes in. They cover the 2.5. They win on the road at Colorado. SMU at Central Florida. When the spreads are this big, you got to look at the style of play and the style of offense. Central Florida will typically not let off the throttle. They'll keep scoring and scoring. So I'll take Central Florida, lay the 23.5 against SMU. Kentucky at Texas A&M. I've had a late change of heart in this game. Kentucky has been so impressive in winning 3 consecutive weeks at Florida and then against Mississippi State and against South Carolina. And they were a substantial underdog in the first 2 weeks, and they were an underdog overall in all 3 games, and they not only covered the spread, they won the games outright, and they won them all by multiple scores. Impressive showing by the Wildcats. So I thought, you know what, defense travels. Texas A&M's not that good. Kentucky, if they can beat those teams by 2 and 3 scores, they can go to Kyle Field, and they already went to the Swamp. And defense travels, yes, and I would trust the Kentucky defense much more than the Texas A&M defense. And at least in the mid-pack of the Eastern Division versus the West, these divisions seem to have evened out, so no longer do we have the West bludgeoning the East. We have teams like Kentucky and Missouri and South Carolina holding its own the last year or two against the East. All right, considering Kentucky has stepped up in a big game in the SEC 3 consecutive weeks, I don't believe that they can complete it again this week and get high again for another big game in the SEC. They go to Texas A&M. The Aggies are going to be ready for them. They're not going to sneak up on Texas A&M after what they've done the last 3 weeks. They're ranked 13th in the country, and of course, Texas A&M is tracking the MarkRogersTV Top 25 that makes sense that says Kentucky is number 2 in the country. Aggies win this game, and they cover the 5.5 points as well. All right, Vandy at Georgia. Georgia wins. Vandy plus the 26. We'll take it. Auburn at Mississippi State. The Bulldogs aren't scoring against anyone, especially the Auburn Tigers. Take Auburn minus 3.5 in Starkville. Washington at UCLA. The Bruins are playing as poor a football as just about anybody in the country. Washington covers 21 points at the Rose Bowl. Nebraska at Wisconsin. Curious line here. It opened at 23, which seems reasonable. Nebraska getting killed by Michigan by 46 points last time out. Wisconsin playing pretty well after the loss to BYU. All right, this line has dropped to 17.5. And unless there's something out there that I don't know, that's the Scott Frost magic kicks in Game 5 maybe, I will take Wisconsin, and I will lay the 17.5 points against the Huskers. We got Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. I could see Notre Dame winning, going away late because of the passing game. The difference with this team in taking on Wake Forest and Stanford the last 2 weeks and mounting 550 and 60 yards of total offense with Ian Book at quarterback, and the Virginia Tech defense is giving up over 300 yards per game in the passing game. But it's in Blacksburg at night. I think the Hokies are going to be up for this game. They really showed out against Duke last week. Just because of home field at night, I will take Notre Dame to win the game. They are the decided better team. Virginia Tech covers 7.5. And then finally, we got to Utah at Stanford. Key Pac-12 game for both teams as they both vie for division championships. Utah going to struggle to score against Stanford. I like the Cardinal minus 3.5 at home against Utah and bouncing back from a embarrassing showing in the fourth quarter against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Keep it right here to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, for the best discussion, debate, and analysis. And, of course, my picks, 60-45 against the spread. Thus far, 99 and 22 straight up. We will see you next time.